Death in the City of Light is its own kind of page-turner, for it seems that David, like Will Lavender, likes nothing better than a mystery, although his are of the historical kind, and he is a relentless sleuth once he is on the trail. Whether he is sussing out the real Atlantis or looking for clues that eventually led to 2 world wars and helped shape modern Europe in Vienna 1814, his last book, he gets his man, so to speak. And in Death in the City of Light, he actually does get his man. A doctor, is it Pito? Is that his? Something like that. Family doctor, politician, and mass murderer. David King is the author, well, wait a minute, I want to read a little bit about what the reviewers have had to say about Death in the City of Light. One of history's most macabre bouts of serial killing, this is from the New York Times. David King, the author of Vienna 1814, has more than just fresh eyes and imaginative speculation to power his revisiting of this long-forgotten true crime. And King Features Syndicate says, if you like true crime, put this book at the top of your reading list. Harold Leader adds a page-turning detective manhunt courtroom drama. King tells it with the skill of the best police and courtroom beat reporters mixed with the sweeping eye of the social historian. And for me, this is what has always set David's work apart, that he brings not only this ability to give you the facts in an orderly way so that you know what's going on no matter how much you have to juggle in your head at the same time, but he gives you a context for what's happened, a sense of the culture and history around the event. And in Death in the City of Light, although it's not something you want to read about, you will keep reading, you keep turning the pages because you want to understand as much as David King wants to understand how could this man do these things? What went into making this event happen? He was a Fulbright scholar who holds a master's degree from Cambridge University. He taught European history at the University of Kentucky before becoming a full-time writer. His books have been widely read by everyone from university students to the President of the United States, and his latest book has been optioned for a film by a Hollywood studio, so we'll be looking forward to that. And he recently has found that he has been elected to the Hall of Fame of his high school alma mater. So that's a pretty telling award right there. David King.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you for that, thank you for the very kind words, and wow, and thank you for coming out today. It's an honor for me to be here. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Can everyone hear okay? Okay, but so yeah, thanks for coming out. This last book, Death in the City of Light, it's a true story of a hunt for a serial killer in Nazi-occupied Paris. And you know, there are no invented scenes, no invented dialogue, no invented characters. It's all from a source somewhere, a diary, letters, police reports. I mean, it seems like a novel. I mean, I have friends, some of my close friends say, "Hey, Dave, I love your novel." I'm like, "Thanks. It's not a novel," and but I always take that as a great compliment when people compare it to a novel. So I am not offended in the least when they do say that. Okay, so it's World War II. We'll start out here. It's World War II. The Nazis have taken Paris. The swastika flies all over the city. One night, I should say, in the middle of all the horrors of the Nazis, someone else is going on doing his own horrors. And it starts, I'm going to start out with a reading. It starts one night in March 1944. A Saturday night. It's one of the richest and most elegant parts of Paris, I should say. And there's a smoke pouring out of a narrow chimney. Oh, thank you. Okay, so there's a smoke pouring out of a chimney, and it smells pretty bad. So the leader of the fire brigade grabs a ladder, climbs onto a second-floor balcony. Opening the wooden shutter, he smashed the glass, released the window lock, and stepped inside the darkened mansion. 2 of his men followed. With the aid of a flashlight, the small team of firefighters traced the peculiar nauseating smell to a small room in the basement. One of 2 coal stoves was roaring. It was a fireman, Birodi, who opened the iron door. Jutting out were the charred remains of a human hand. On the far staircase was a pile of debris, which turned out to be a skull, a rib cage, and several other recognizable bones. Arms and legs had been strewn about in parts. A split torso and 2 other skulls lay on the floor. The stench of scorched and decomposing flesh was overpowering. Horrified, the fire chief ordered his men out of the basement. As the firefighters exited the grisly sight, one of the younger men leaned over the iron banister and vomited. "Gentlemen, come and take a look," the fire chief told the patrolmen once he emerged onto the street through the old carriage entrance. "I believe that your work will be cut out for you." And it would be. I mean, the stuff they would find, it is a nightmare house. But the big questions that the police would have are, who is the killer? Who are the victims? And what are the motives? Why is he doing this thing? And this will drive the police nuts. It takes them a long time to try to figure out what is going on. Well, the owner of the house, that was easy enough. That was a guy, Marcel Petiot, Dr. Petiot. He was a doctor. He was a physician. He was a very charming, intelligent man, very witty man. He got his medical degree at the University of Paris. He was married, had been married for many years. He had a teenager, a son, got good grades in school. Before he came to Paris, he had a medical practice in another small town in which he gave away very heavily discounted medical care to the poor, and sometimes even free medical care to the poor. He used this to his advantage, as he was often using things to his advantage, even got himself elected mayor. So here's this very charming, witty guy who loves music, loves antiques, loves art, former mayor, and yet all these things are found in his house. I mean, that to me was fascinating. Could he possibly have done these things? Well, the press immediately seized upon this story, and headlines are splashed across all the major Paris newspapers. They had all these names for Dr. Petiot. He was the vampire of Rue de Sceaux. That's the street where they found these things. He was the monster of Rue de Sceaux. He was the butcher of Paris. He was the underground assassin. Dr. Satan. They came on. The werewolf was another one that was also used. The scalper. On and on it went. The modern Bluebeard was another one that was used. And again, they're referring to a 17th century fairy tale or folk tale, you might say, about an aristocrat who had this castle and he would keep people chained up, women chained up in this torture room in his castle. Dr. Petiot also had this very strange room, a triangular shaped room that the police for a long time would try to figure out what he was doing in this room with these hooks on the walls. So people were quick to speculate, as you can imagine, on the murderer and his motives. What was he doing? Some said he was a sexual sadist. He was torturing people. All the bodies that weren't chopped up were found naked. Others said, no, he wasn't that. He was a mad scientist. He was doing experiments on people. And they talked about, even one of his friends wrote this in a memoir, about how he had this long needle. And what was that all about? That was another theory. Others said, no, he's not that. He's just a madman. And he likes to put on this mask and do things to people right before he killed them. What was this mask? I think there had other uses for this mask. But anyway, there were people said he was this, he was that, he did this, he did that. There were so many rumors going around, and many of them contradictory, that one historian wrote in his diary at this time, said, no, Dr. Petiot, he never existed. He was just a fabrication made up. And you say, well, why would they want to do that? Well, in March of 1944, I mean, think about all the things that are going on in Paris at this time. You have blackouts, you have curfews, lack of food, you have rationing, and you have all these Nazis around town. The headlines could be a way to distract people from the hardships that they were experiencing. And also keep in mind that the war was also going pretty poorly for the Germans at this time in 1944. Coming up from Sicily, the Americans could be landing soon, the whole Eastern Front thing with the Russians. perhaps this was a distraction. And the historian, if you're curious, if you like this wonderful French book, The Little Prince, the historian is dedicated to this historian who thought that Petiot was made up at this time. Petiot, unfortunately, was not made up. But that was, that was just indicative of all the rumors that were going on about the time. And when the press, it's hard for me to sit still when I give a talk. Does this come out?
I think it's faint.
Okay, I'll try. Well, the press would get on, he was spotted all over town. He was going west to Spain, he was going north to Belgium, he was going east to Switzerland, he's going south to the unoccupied zone, on and on and on. People were spotted. One person said they thought they found him and had dinner with him. He showed up at his tavern. And this was Dr. Petiot. He didn't say much. We just chat. Well, he just sat there. I don't think it was him because, he probably would have said a lot more than just sat there. Another person said, well, we thought we came across him at a train station. And so she was pretty excited. She got some of her friends to go to the newspaper kiosk, and they were going to, distract him. We'll go arrest him and grab him. It turns out it was just a businessman from Spain on vacation. And she admitted later on she was disappointed it wasn't him. It would have been nice to meet him. Well, the police chief and his team were following all these leads, and people were writing in. Amateurs were on the lookout for this guy. You had psychics saying where they had visions of coming across him. There were many dead ends and many wild goose chases. And eventually there were even letters arriving to the police signed Dr. Petiot, reminding, taunting them that he's still running. Were they really from him? The police chief thought so. So gradually the police were uncovering a very rich, if complicated picture of this murder suspect and his relations. So what were the charges? Just to jump ahead, they are going to catch him. Dr. Petiot, after a long hunt, makes a really stupid mistake and ends up getting caught. He came very, very, very close to getting away. But he makes a mistake, they catch him, and he's going to be charged with 27 murders. His response, no, I didn't kill 27 people. I killed 63, and you have the wrong people. The prosecution's taken back by this line of argument. They're like, he said, I am a resistant. I am a hero. I killed traitors. I killed collaborators. They will build statues to me in the future and put me on pedestals. Well, the police are going to find out, which one was it first? Was it 27? Was it 63? The police think it was neither, probably 100, 150. No one knows. No one has any idea how many people he killed. It is a lot. He is certainly prolific. And the police will learn to their horror, profitable. He will get filthy rich from his murders. And as the police gradually uncover his scheme, they will find out the victims are not random. But it's quite simple scheme and quite devious actually, and it will involve recruiters seeking out victims, and one of the places they work is out of a hair salon. He has a hairstylist and a former makeup man who knows the bars. He's going in the bars, he's going into the theaters, and they're finding people, and they're going to send them to the doctor. Well, the police are gradually figuring out what's going on. And one thing that really helped them, actually, was a file from the Gestapo. And the Gestapo, if you know German, it's the Gestapo is the secret state police. It's from the German Geheime Staatspolizei. The first Gestapo, Geheime Staatspolizei. That's all it is. It's the secret state police. And when I was in Paris, I actually got to see this file, among many other things. It was incredible. And how am I doing on time? I forgot to, are we okay? I forgot to bring my watch. Okay, but are we okay on time? Yeah, okay, super. Well, one fun story was when I was in Paris, I had some really good fortune. These archives have been closed. The police files on Dr. Petiot have been closed since World War II. And they've been locked away, classified. I knew that going in. I knew that when I go there, and I tried to get into them too. They said no. These are classified. But I had some very incredible good fortune. And they let me see them. They gave me complete, unrestricted access to these files that have been closed since World War II. And it was unbelievable. I mean, it was like, felt like, a kid in Willy Wonka or something. I mean, it was amazing. They said, when would you like these files? The next morning, the very first carton was there. And, I mean, it was something else because they were very detailed. Searches of his properties. And he had many properties because the real estate values were depressed. The Nazis, had taken over Paris, and it would just take property. So the prices of property and value went down. It's a good time to buy. So there were searches of his properties. There were interviews with his wife, interviews with his son. They admitted they supposedly never interviewed his son, but they did. Interviews with his maid. He had a couple maids, interviews with both of them. Pretty revealing. They were talking about how Dr. Peccio would come home with these suitcases full of clothes. They'd put it on the table and they'd go through it. Because again, one of the questions, how much did his wife really know? And on and on. I mean, detailed reports from the Gestapo, detailed reports from the mental institutions where he was kept. Well, so that was incredible. That was a wonderful help. And let me just say, that's a short intro to Death in the City of Light. It's a true story of a hunt for a serial killer in Nazi-occupied Paris. And the second part is a courtroom drama where they actually catch him. And that is where we get to see him up close. And he is witty, he is funny. He does kind of throw the prosecution for a loop. And it becomes far more challenging than you might think to prosecute him. One reviewer of one of Canada's biggest newspapers said the Peccio trial made the O.J. Simpson case look like a model of justice. And along the way, too, one of my favorite parts was to get to see Paris, because you were going from Paris to the Gestapo, Paris of the resistance, Paris of prostitutes and drug dealers. He was also dealing drugs. Paris of gangsters. Some of his victims were gangsters wanting to leave Paris. And also Paris of Picasso, Jean-Paul Sartre, who taught at the school where his son went for a little while before they got him out of town. So it's Paris of the occupation, the resistance, and the gangster underworld. But yeah, this is a wonderful experience to write this book. And so thanks for coming out today. Thanks for being a part of this. And I want to thank you for all the support you do for Lexington Writer Scene and the Carnegie Center for all the work that they do for making the growing Lexington writer scene. So thank you.